Well, hello then, I do hope you're all well. The Tory chairman has slammed what he calls a painful woke psychodrama that is sweeping the West and eroding its confidence, arguing that people should not be obsessed with pronouns or trying to decolonize maths. Yes, exactly. The remarks on cancel culture were made by the Minister for Flags and Culture Wars, Oliver Dowden, a senior Conservative and former Culture Secretary, in a speech to the Heritage Foundation, a right-wing US think tank. He goes on to say, woke ideology is a dangerous form of decadence at a time when our attention should be focused on external foes. He stated that confident in its values, West would not be obsessed over pronouns or indeed seeking to decolonize mathematics, appearing to mock the concerns of trans rights activists and those attempting to confront the legacy of colonialism. Now, Alexander Boris de Peffel Johnson has hired or promoted a number of anti-woke warriors since taking office, including Munira Mirza, his former policy chief, who resigned this month, Kemi Badenoch, an Equalities Minister, sorry if I butchered your name, and Nadine Forever Trousered Dorris, the Culture Secretary. Dowden's preoccupation with the subject, on the other hand, suggests that the Conservatives may be willing to make it a platform for their next election campaign. Last year he delivered a speech at the Conservative Party conference criticising woke aggression and cancel culture, which he described as bullying and haranguing of individuals for their opinions. He also said Labour has woke running through it like a stick of Brighton rock. Wow, we have a comedian in our midst. Dowden attempted to suggest in his speech on Monday that woke ideology was weakening the West at a time when it was facing threats from aggressive states such as Russia. Rogue states are seeking to challenge the international order, and at the precise point when our resolve ought to be strongest, a pernicious new ideology is sweeping our societies, Dowden said. It goes by many names. In Britain, its adherents sometimes describe themselves as social justice warriors. They claim to be woke, awakened by the so-called truths of our societies. But wherever they are found, they pursue a common policy inimical to freedom. He claimed woke ideology was now everywhere. It is in our universities, but also in our schools, in government bodies, but also in corporations, in social science facilities, but also in the hard sciences, Dowden said. But I tell you, it is a dangerous form of decadence. Just when our attention should be focused on external foes, we seem to have entered this period of extreme introspection and self-criticism. And it really does threaten to sap our societies of their own self-confidence, just when we should be showcasing the vitality of our values and the strength of democratic societies. We seem to be willing to abandon those values for the sake of appeasing this new groupthink. He then went down the proper route of disrespecting an MP murdered by a domestic terrorist who was gaslighted by the likes of his ilk by basically trolling her famous quote by saying that we are obsessed by what divides us rather than what unites us, adding the US and the UK may certainly be very different societies, but we are joined by the very same fundamental values. Neither of us can afford the luxury of indulging in this painful woke psychodrama. Too many people have already fallen for the dismal argument that standing up for freedom is reactionary, or that somehow it's kind of virtuous to submit to these self-righteous dogmas. Well, it plainly is not. I have to say, I have absolutely no idea what the fuck this clown is on about. I understand the words, but they all just seem to be in the wrong order for me. He sounds quite an intelligent bloke until he owns his gob, I suppose. All that guff was just utter nonsense for the Brexit loons, and with the worst joke in the history of comedy, where he said about Labour being woke and Brighton rock, clearly shows that this will be an election drive for the next general election, won't it? Ignore the fact that they've presided over the worst death rate, our economy has fallen off a cliff, scandal after scandal, energy, fuel and costs of living prices are going through the roof, shoving people who have the audacity to protest in prison for 51 weeks because down with being allowed to disagree with whatever the government is doing. Ignore the fact that while people were having to say goodbye through hospital door windows or via Zoom, while the worst Prime Minister ever was partying like there was no tomorrow, while at the same time setting rules so that if you were within 100 yards of your mate or was seen with a cup of coffee with someone in the park, the police were down on you like a ton of bricks. Now we have a Secretary for Education now saying that children shouldn't be allowed to have an opinion about a lying turd of a Prime Minister, and schools should root out activist teachers for doing the horrendous crime of teaching our children the curriculum that the government has set. We now have the Tory chairman spouting about wokeism, whatever the fuck that means. But they're obsessed by what divides us rather than what unites us, jibe. Now that's low blow. But what do you expect from a party that's led by a liar who has no moral fibre, honour, or any common decency, and who only cares about what will get him through the day? A man whose only drive is winning at all costs in whatever endeavour he goes into. It's just a crying shame that that same drive for winning isn't matched by what to do after he's won, because his past history shows that when he has won, his next plan is to do absolutely fuck all, the lazy fuck. Now, if what I've said here is what he means by a painful woke psychodrama, then guilty as charged. I'm a lily-livered lefty wokey snowflake. And you know what? I'm very proud to be one, because I'd rather be one who's woke than someone who doesn't have the critical thinking skills to see past the absolute guff of get Brexit done. But what do you guys think? Right, I shall leave the video here, and until the next time I shall bid you farewell and take care.